Hey guys, so I know this is like a week late, but this is my June wrap up and July TBR. Plus I have a few books to show you that I got. It's kind of a haul. I didn't actually buy them myself, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. There are several books this month that I meant to do full reviews on, but I kind of fell flat with that. I just wasn't in the mood to review some of them, not because I didn't like them, just because I didn't feel like making videos at that point. I didn't really read that much this month. I was kind of distracted by the things. I think I'm going to have a lot more time to read in July. I hope I will, at least. But I only read like 4.5 books in June, but a couple of them were kind of long, so I guess it's okay. Whatever. The first book I finished in June, is The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the sequel to The Name of the Wind in the second book in the Kingkiller Chronicles. I do have a full review of The Name of the Wind up, and I really wanted to do a full review on this, but then I decided not to. So The Wise Man's Fear, it was good. It was really good. For the first like 600 pages, I loved it a lot. I loved it even more than I loved the first one. I mean, there really isn't a whole lot of really special things happening in the series. I mean, it's not incredibly original in a lot of ways, but at the same time it's written in a really original way. Patrick Rothfuss's writing style is really nice and gets even better in this book, and we just go from like event to event to event in Quoth's life, and it's really fun to read. And like I said, I really enjoy reading it a lot. For the first 600 pages, I'm going to go through a lot of the same things that we did in the first book. It starts off with him at the university learning more about everything that he's learning there, and then he kind of goes off onto these other little adventures, which are all really interesting to read about. Definitely gives you a nice break from the university, definitely gives us a nice like look into more parts of this world that Patrick Rothfuss is building, and the world building is getting really nice. It's a lot better than it was in the first book, in my opinion. I feel like I'm learning a lot more, and it's all a lot more interesting than it was in the first book, and I really like that a lot. I really like everything Quoth did, everything he went through. He goes and like lives with this king for a while, and it's really cool. It's really fun to read. Then, like I said, when I got to 600 pages in, something happens, and if you've read this book before, then you know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to say it because it doesn't really mean anything to people that haven't read it yet, and it's not really a spoiler. He runs into this character called Felurian, and she, I don't know, this whole section of the book, it lasts for like 100 pages, and then everything after that just went on forever. I mean, the book is 1,000 pages long, and everything just went on for a really long time after 600 pages, and she runs into this character, and you go through this whole section that is just completely pointless in my opinion. And honestly, the book feels like it turns into Patrick Rothfuss's horny schoolboy wet dream for the next 400 pages in a row. I start to really dislike Quoth a lot, and I really like Quoth all throughout the entire first book and up until this point. I like his arrogance, his character. I think he's a really well done character up until this point, where he just kind of becomes really dickish and really annoying, and just becomes really inconsistent as well. I don't know, maybe I'm just a prude, but I don't really want to listen to Quoth telling us about his sexual adventures for 400 pages, his 15-year-old sexual adventures that lasts for months and months, huge chunks of sections of the book just devoted to this one thing, and it was really annoying. And this whole thing where Quoth like starts describing how he's going to play different women like instruments, like you have to play women like you would different instruments. And just like, fuck you, Quoth, you're such a fucking asshole. And he like defends it by saying like, if you don't understand what I mean, you don't understand love or music or me. And I'm just like, you are the stupidest, biggest asshole in the world right now, Quoth. You understand nothing about love. You go off and say like, oh, Denna is the most beautiful girl in the entire world, I love her, she's the most amazing woman. And then he meets Felurian, and she's like, oh, she's like the most beautiful girl in the entire world, she is the most beautiful creature ever, and I'm just gonna have sex with her for months on end. And then he gets out of this section with Felurian and starts having sex with tons of other girls, and just says that line about playing women like instruments. and goes off on all these tangents about these women, and then he goes back to Denna, and he's like, oh, Denna, oh, despite all of that stuff, Denna is still the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Oh, she's everything to me. And he's the stupidest, biggest hypocrite ever. He became so fucking annoying. Maybe I'm just a prude. I know I am a prude when it comes to stuff, but he annoyed the shit out of me. That whole section annoyed the shit out of me. And I mean, it's not like stuff like that really bothers me in books. Like, it's fine. That whole side of life is very important sometimes to show in books. It's a very important thing to include sometimes, and it can be done in a really, really good way. But the way it was done in this book just wasn't good. It was annoying, and Quoth was annoying, and just became an asshole, and I started not to like him anymore. But then I really liked the ending, and the ending was good. I think I gave the book 4 out of 5 stars or something like that. Yeah, I liked the way it ended, and I liked most of the book. It's just certain parts of it really annoyed me. I'm really looking forward to seeing where the series goes still. So hopefully it doesn't keep on annoying me, and hopefully Quoth stops annoying me in the next book. I don't know, I guess we'll see. The next book I read in June was Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rifka Brunt. I really, really love this a lot. I give this 5 out of 5 stars. It's one of my new favorites. I felt a really huge personal connection to the main character. I did a full review on this, and you should go watch that if you want to know my full thoughts. It's basically about, it's set in the 80s, it's about this family and this girl's uncle who gets AIDS, and how she and her family deals with that, and it's really, really good. The main character's a huge introvert, and I just felt a really good connection to her, and I think a lot of people would also feel the same if they gave this book a chance. And then I read Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. I was very, very excited to get into this. This is Stephen King's first release of this year. This is the first book in a new trilogy that he is just starting, and the next book comes out next year, and this was really good. I gave a full review of this as well. You can go watch that to find out my full thoughts. I'll put a link to the review in the description. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it felt a little bit smaller than I would have liked it to be. It was a little bit less of a story than I thought it would be. It didn't cover as much as I thought it would. There weren't as many characters as there usually are in a Stephen King book, but I still really enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was really good. I thought it was really well written. And one of the perspectives we read from is a really fucked up character. And I'm not gonna say it was a lot of fun to read from. It was really disturbing to read from that perspective, and I think it was really well done. So go watch my review if you want to learn more about this book. Then I read The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. This was the Writers of Color Goodreads group book of the month. This is what they read last month, and I read it along with them. I didn't get the opportunity to participate in much of the discussion, or any of the discussion really, but I did watch. They did a full live show. A few booktubers did a live show like around this book and around the discussion of this book, and it was a really, really good discussion. I watched all of it, and I decided that if I did a review, it would have just been re-saying everything that they had already said about the book. So I really suggest you go watch at least part or all of that live discussion, because it was really, really good. I'll put a link to that in the description. I didn't think I had much more to add other than what they said in that live discussion. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I did like it. There were some things I didn't really like. The main character, it's kind of hard to tell who the main character is. You would think that it would be Oscar, but it actually isn't. Basically, Oscar is this overweight Dominican kid who's like obsessed with fantasy and love and finding love, and he's just having a really hard time with life in general because of his interests in those two things. But it's narrated by this character called Junior, and he is an asshole, and I hated reading from his perspective. I mean, in the live show, they really discussed why they thought Junior was the narrator, and why it was from his perspective, and why he is the way he is, and I thought they said a lot of really great things. It's a good book. It's definitely something that you could read and get a lot of the references from if you're really into fantasy and stuff like that. It's definitely a really interesting look into the Dominican culture, into Dominican families. It's really about Oscar's whole family in general. Basically, Oscar's family believes that they have this curse over them, and really this entire book follows a lot of their family, like the history of the family, and not just Oscar, and really it doesn't really follow much of Oscar at all. There's this whole huge section in here that follows one of the people like way back in their family's history that kind of dragged on for a while, and it was kind of boring to read about. But overall, it was a good book, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then the last book I read in June that I was also going to do a full review for, but then decided not to, is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I really, really, really loved this a lot. The reason I didn't do a review So once again, I just felt like I didn't really feel like making a video when I finished reading it. But like I said, I still really love this a lot. I really want to say a couple things about it. Like, I didn't know what the story was about when I went into it, and now I do know what it's about. And I wasn't expecting it to be about some of the things it was about, and I really loved it a lot. This book just covers so much. It covers so many different characters and so many different topics in this high fantasy world. And I just think it's really good. It was a lot of fun to read. It was a whole freaking load of fun to read. I'm not gonna like explain what it's about or anything, because most people have already read it, or if you don't know what it's about yet, just go read it anyway. You don't need to know what it's about, just read it. It's popular for a reason. It's really freaking good. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I loved it. And I really liked how each chapter was like a different character, from a different character's perspective. It was all in third person, and even though it was in third person, you still get a really good sense of who that character is that you're following through that third person perspective. I think my favorite characters to read from were like Arya and Jon and Tyrion, of course, and Daenerys eventually. At first I really didn't like Daenerys' chapters because they were all about like her having sex with Drogo constantly, and that kind of got repetitive after a while. But then towards the end, Daenerys became like one of my favorite characters, and I'm really excited to see where her story goes. I really like how separate Daenerys' story is from everything else that's going on in the book. Like every other character's stories, they're all like combined and come together, and I think that's really nice. It's really nice how the story and all of the characters kind of pass off like back and forth with one another. Like we'll be following one character and their story, and it will eventually lead us to another character, and then we'll read from that character's perspective eventually. And the story just passes back and forth between characters really nicely in a really well done way. And then Daenerys' story is just like completely separate for the most part from everybody else's story, and I really like that. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I love the ending, and I can't wait to see what happens. I already know a lot of what happens. I don't watch the show. I've never watched the show, not a full episode anyway. I've never watched a full episode, but I've seen so many things online about this series and about the show that I know a ton of stuff that already happens in the books and the show and stuff, and it's very much, I know a lot of spoilers already. So I kind of know a lot of things are going to happen, but I also didn't know a lot of things that happened. Like, there are a lot of things that happened in this that I didn't know were going to happen. And anyway, I really love this a lot. I can't believe it took me so long to start reading the series, but I'm going to try to read the entire series all the way through by the end of this year. And then something very interesting might be happening very soon. I've been emailing back and forth. One of my viewers, he's been watching my videos for a while, he comments on videos a lot. His name is Steve, and he is the editor. He is one of the editors for this online literary publication called Open Letters Monthly. It is a really awesome literary publication, and we've been emailing and talking about the possibility of me doing these reviews for new releases for Open Letters. They've never had video reviews on their site before, and he thought that could be really interesting to have me do some video reviews of new releases for Open Letters. It'd be formatted a little bit differently than the videos I already do. I would post them on this channel, but I would let you know that they were for Open Letters and that this was like a new release that I was reviewing. He sent me a few new releases that I could possibly review. We're not sure if I'm going to review any of these yet. It depends on whether I like them or not, whether I think they're worth reviewing. The first one is called Chasers of the Wind by Alexei Piov. I guess that's how you pronounce his name. It's like a Russian author. This is actually like a Russian fantasy book. I was looking it up on Goodreads, and it has a Russian, I believe, Goodreads page, and it just released in English, and I think it sounds pretty interesting. And the next one is All Those Vanished Engines by Paul Park. This is a sci-fi book. I'm not sure when this is going to be released. I'm not sure when any of these are actually released. I of course will let you know that if I do decide to do reviews on them, and of course I'll let you know more about the books when I decide to review them, if I decide to review them. Whereas right now I don't really know all that much about these yet. The last one is, it's got one of those kind of silly looking covers. It's called Unwept by Tracy Hickman and Laura Hickman. This is a dark fantasy series, the beginning of a dark fantasy series, I believe. It says they're New York Times best-selling authors, so that's interesting. I'm not sure what I'm going to think of this one, but it's really short. All of these are pretty short, so I'm going to try to read all of these really soon and see if I want to do full reviews on them or not. We haven't decided exactly how we're going to go about doing it. And yeah, if I end up liking these and reviewing them and all that, I'll let you know plenty about what they're about and all of that. As of right now, I just wanted to show them to you and let you know that that might be happening at some point in the near future. On top of that, he's taken it upon himself to send me a whole bunch of these really awesome looking classic fantasy books. I've been blown away this entire month because he sent me all of these really awesome old classic fantasy like paperbacks and stuff. Well, first he sent me this book. It's called Mechanical for Leibowitz. This book sounds exactly like something I would like. It's a classic like fantasy story. He also sent me the first book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. It's called Gardens of the Moon. Nicole's Adventures in Science Fiction has done reviews on this series. I think she's up to like book 8 so far. There's 10 books in the series. This one I think is supposed to be the hardest one to read or something, but I'm really excited to read it. It sounds really interesting. It's just like a classic high fantasy series that I think would be a really good thing for me to read. And I've said thank you to him so many times already, but I wanted just to show you everything that he sent me and say thank you once again to him because he sent me so much awesome stuff. He said that one of his favorite things to do is to give books to readers that he knows will love them. And these are some fantasy books that I might not have come across for a while, if ever. I love these copies. This first trilogy is the Dragon Riders of Pern trilogy by Anne McCaffrey. There's Dragonflight, Dragon Quest, and The White Dragon. He also sent me Orson Scott Card's The Tales of Alvin Maker trilogy. I've never read anything about Orson Scott Card. I don't really like Orson Scott Card as a person. I've never read Ender's Game, but I will give these a shot, definitely. He also sent me a trilogy called The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever. And once again, they're these really nice, really cool old classic paperbacks, and I really like that a lot. There's Lord Fowl's Bane, The Iliarth War, and The Power That Preserves. This also seems like a really interesting trilogy. I've never heard of this trilogy before, and apparently there are 7 other books after this trilogy. And the last thing he sent me was the Lord of the Rings trilogy, once again in these really great old classic mass market paperback. I really, really like these a lot. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them, but they're so much smaller than the usual like books you see, like the usual box sets you see, which I really like for some reason. I've never read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love the movies. The movies are my favorite movies ever, really. They have the best vibes in anything I've ever watched or read or seen or heard. As a whole, everything about them is just perfect and amazing, and I really need to read the actual books. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to him again, because this is amazing. Like I said, I've been blown away all month by everything he sent me, and he's going to keep sending me new releases for open letters until we find some things that I can review for them and see how that goes. And hopefully that works out and could be really interesting, and I could read some new releases for everybody, and maybe you'll see something new that you want to check out and get into. And now, real quick, a July TBR that you're probably going to laugh at because it's ridiculous and probably not going to happen. I really hope it happens. I really hope I can get through everything that I want to read this month. I think I'll have more time to read this month than I did last month. I really want to get through everything, so let's just get right into it. July TBR. I already read one book of July, and that's We the Drawn by Karsten Jensen. I really like this a lot. I'm going to do a review on this very soon. 5 out of 5 stars. Really, really good. I'm reading Dune right now with the BookTube Reading Buddies. Everybody seems to love this book. Tons of people are reading it right now. It's really interesting so far. I'm not that far into it yet, but I'm really hoping to finish this soon because I really think I'm going to like it a lot. And I'm going to try and read The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance back to back. And I'm reading this like by myself, and then I'm gonna try to read this with Lindsay Ray and I think a couple other booktubers. I'm really excited to get into these. I think I'm gonna get through them pretty quickly. They're both over 1,000 pages long, but I think I'm gonna get through them pretty quickly because they're Brandon Sanderson. They're supposed to be amazing, and I'm really, really, really in the mood to read them right now. And the last thing I know I'm going to read this month is Clash of Kings by George R. R. Martin. This is the second book in A Song of Ice and Fire. I love Game of Thrones, like I said, so I want to get into the next one right away. And I'm going to try to get through these short new releases. I think I can. I'm going to try to get through them like back to back maybe and see which ones I want to review. We'll see. I'm not sure exactly when I'll get to them, but I'm going to try to get to them pretty soon. Anyway, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with more. I'm going to have a June movie wrap-up out very soon. I'm about to film it after I film this. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.